Antisense Therapeutics is an Australian publicly traded biotechnology company that's working on commercializing antisense therapies to treat some of the largest unmet needs in healthcare globally. And with me is the CEO, Mark Diamond, to explain the latest study that you're doing. And I'll have you explain the science behind it. But this is the dosing for Duchenne's muscular dystrophy is what this study is really trying to determine. So explain what you're doing.
Thanks, Jane. It's great to be chatting again. And yes, we have recently announced the start of a preclinical study in Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy animal model. Animal model is called the MDX mouse. And so this study is specifically established, Jane, to look to see the use of an antisense drug targeting CD49D, like our drug AT1102 that we have in development for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, in combination with the dystrophin restoration agents. So these are the drugs that are marketed in the US today for predominantly the ambulant boys with Duchenne's. And what we're looking, Jane, is testing the two drugs together to see if the combination has a superior benefit or effects than just using the drugs as what we call a monotherapy or as a single agent.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And do you have all of the enrollees in the clinical trial? Are you still looking for people? Like, where does that stand?
So, Jane, this is a mouse study.
So. A mouse study. Yes, you said that. Okay. So, okay. So, very good. Now, will it go on to humans after?
They've signed their consent forms, and we are ready to go.
Got it. Okay. And then will you eventually, I guess, will try on humans if this produces the results that you are thinking it will?
Absolutely, Jane. Okay. That's right. So that would be the next step, following, say, a positive outcome from this study, is looking at testing the same concept hypothesis in patients.
Yeah. When do you expect to get your first results?
Yeah, we've said that now that we've started dosing, we'll have the results out in the fourth calendar quarter of this year. So you're not far away from being able to report on the outcomes here.
Uh-huh. Now let's talk a little bit about DMD, Duchenne's, and just how prevalent is this? How big of a market could it be? I know there's a business side as well as a human side to this.
That's absolutely right, Jade, and it's always important to draw that out in such discussions, because really the focus here of Antisense Therapeutics is to come up with a therapy for this devastating disease, where today there really is no cure and no really effective therapies. So what we know is that in the US, roughly speaking, Jane, there are about 20,000 boys that have Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and today the only approved drugs for that are aimed at increasing the levels of dystrophin in the boys, this drug class is called the dystrophin restoration agents. And so they're marketed by companies such as Sarepta Therapeutics. NS Pharma have also recently had a dystrophin restoration drug. They also known as exon skipping drugs that are approved for the boys with Duchenne's, predominantly being used in the younger boys who are ambulant. And the treatment costs for these boys are very significant, Jane, so that for a year's treatment, the average cost is around $750,000 US per annum.
Oh, goodness.
So, an expensive therapy. Today, those drugs are yet to prove conclusively in properly controlled clinical studies that they're actually having any benefit on the disease progression in the boys. So they were approved on the basis of being able to show that they could increase the dystrophin levels in the muscle, with the presumption that by doing that, it would go on to improve the boy's function. So in terms of the market opportunity, Jane, well, in the US last financial quarter, the sales for these dystrophin restoration agents were approaching $250 million So you're on track to be a $1 billion selling on an annual basis segment. So, we think that there's sort of two important aspects to this. These exon skipping drugs, dystrophin restoration agents, James, continue to be used in combination with the corticosteroid drugs, so anti-inflammatory medications. Our drug AT1102, as we've spoken about before, is designed to be able to address and treat the inflammation in the muscles, to do it in a superior way and a safer way to the corticosteroids.
Yeah.
So we think that being able to look to use the combination of our anti-inflammatory drug AT1102 along with the exon skipping drugs will improve on the outcomes for the boys, will also improve on the safety profile of using the combination, because we know that these corticosteroids, when they're used at the doses they need to be used in these boys, cause some very serious side effects. So firstly, we're really focused on delivering better outcomes for the boys, and the other aspect, just given the size of the market, it clearly presents as a very, very attractive market to be focused on, and that's obviously important for our shareholders, investors, because we know that they're well aware that this is a disease area in desperate need for better therapies, but also they're into this supporting the company with the view that that we could look to grow the company substantially through successful advancement in our programs, because there is such a significant market potential underpinning this program.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask about the side effects, because I noticed that the current treatments are steroid related. So your hope is to provide something better, so they don't have that steroid that can provide some of the side effects, which I assume can be very painful and detrimental to the person.
Absolutely, Jane. In terms of the detrimental effects, and they're wide ranging when they're used at the high doses and chronically, as they're required to in these boys that have Duchenne's, and those side effects include significant weight gain. So boys are already having difficulty with their mobility, having to also having to address the significant weight gain that comes from the continued use of these steroids. They cause osteoporosis, Jane. So we've heard stories where mothers, have taken their boys, say, from wheelchairs to put them into bed, and they've broken the backs of the boys because their bones have become so porous, causes growth and mental retardation. The list is very significant. But to date, the only effective therapy, particularly for the non-ambulant boys, it's really the only drug class available to them to try and slow this steady, insidious loss of muscle strength and function. And so, while the parents, caregivers, physicians are aware of these side effects, the view is that it's better to have to deal with those side effects than it is the view that these boys, will lose that muscle function, because it can never be regained, Jane, because once it's lost forever. So, everyone is focused on and desperate to preserve the existing strength and function for these boys, and that's why they tolerate the use of these corticosteroids. So you're absolutely right, Jane. We're looking for a better way of addressing the inflammation in the muscles than the corticosteroids, and we think by being able to show, using it alongside the dystrophin restorations for even better outcomes, that would, present as a really exciting opportunity for patients that have this devastating disease.
Well, I mean, and you've, I think, just emphasized the importance of the work that you're doing, because it's heartbreaking. I have a son, and I mean, to think about what the families are going through and what the boys are going through, and the pain and the treatments and all of that. So really important work you're doing. So, okay, so fourth quarter of this year, you think you'll start to have the initial results, and then if they do perform as expected, then what happens after that?
Yeah, so Jane, because we've got substantial safety experience with our drug in patients with Duchenne's, the path into a clinical study would be very straightforward. So if we had positive results here, we could envisage the next lot of clinical work being, a clinical study where we would look to use the drug in combination with the dystrophin agents in patients. So that's exciting that we can move very rapidly, potentially, from this animal study into a proof of concept study in patients with Duchenne's.
Mm-hmm. And you're headquartered in Australia. I know you have a partnership with a U.S. pharmaceutical company. Would this be a global drug, or how does that work in terms of approvals, country by country? Where would you target first?
Yes, that's a very good question, Jane. So it is planned as a global development program, and we are, and we talked about this before, Jane. We are initially running our late-stage clinical studies in Europe and Australia. So there, we're looking at generating data with the use of AT1102 alone. So this would be a clinical study where we're dosing AT1102 in non-ambulant boys with Duchenne's, and we're hoping to have that study up and running before the end of this year, as we've reported on. And so that data, though, Jane, we think would be, if it's positive, would be relevant for all regulatory authorities around the world, for us to be able to take that data to them and to see their views on the approvability of a drug for this indication, because what we're aware of in the rare disease space, particularly where there are very few treatments, and this being a fatal disease, there is definitely openness on behalf of the regulatory authorities to look at data at an earlier stage in development, contemplating potential accelerated approvals. So what we're looking to do here, Jane, is to run a study, as I said, in Europe. If the data's highly positive, go to European regulatory authorities, go to the US regulatory authorities, talk to our own regulatory authority, the TGA, about what would be the sensible next steps. And it could include, we think, if the data was as we hope it will be, showing significant benefit for these boys, it could present as an accelerated opportunity to bring the product to market.
Yeah. Well, I wish you the best of luck in this, and fourth quarter's coming up, so I'm sure we'll be doing an update as those results come out.
Yeah, absolutely, Jane. So we're really excited about completing the study, and you've got to have fingers firmly crossed for positive results out this quarter. And at the same time, as I mentioned, we'd be looking to initiate this major clinical study that we're looking to run as a multinational study in Europe. So it's going to be a really exciting quarter for us as we approach the end of the year. I'm expecting there will be lots of news flow from the company, Jane. So yeah, hopefully we'll get a chance to speak again soon.
Yes, I think we will be doing some updates, I think, as we get toward the end of the year. So thank you so much, Mark, for joining us and updating us on the study.
You're very welcome, Jane. Thank you.
Okay.